welcome back to the paddock. My name is Evan, and I know I normally do short-form content shouting about Jacques Villeneuve, but I decided to make long-form content shouting about him and the entire race weekend at Mexico. So the Prix, I don't have a lot of stuff other than I was excited to see Hadjar running with a Prost helmet. I really like Prost, so that's exciting. And RB with the McDonald's logo, I never really saw it. There's so many advertisements on the car, it was kind of easy to overlook the one that they had. For FP1, I obviously had a lot of notes, mostly due to everything that went on, but I feel like all the other free practice sessions didn't have as much drama as they usually do. I feel like they were holding out for us mostly because of how utterly chaotic the race was. But to begin with, they were running the C5, the C4, and the C2 tires, and hold on, normally there's just like two names. We had Pato O'Ward replacing Lando Norris, Fred Vesti for George Russell, Arvid Lindblad for Max Verstappen, Jack Crawford for Lance Stroll, Antonio Fuoco for Lewis Hamilton, Luke Browning for Carlos Sainz, Hirakawa Ryo for Ollie Behrman, Iwasa Ayumu for Liam Lawson, and Paul Aaron for Pierre Gasly. The timing sheet hurt my brain. I know all these people. Mostly, obviously, Pato's from IndyCar. There were a ton of names from Formula 2 and a ton of names from WEC. All series I like, but it's just, it feels like that weird crossover episode where too many characters are just mushed in one spot, where I was like, wait a minute, what's Antonio Fuoco doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in WEC? I said I was going to be complaining about Jacques Villeneuve on Instagram. Not JV, I'm gonna kill myself. Not literally. I might have to censor that. I don't know if you can say that nowadays. I also said apparently someone on Reddit called him the Antichrist. Him calling for less tire wear and the possibility of a zero stop. That one really got to me because I feel like there needs to be some kind of healthy medium between whatever this stupidity is and whatever the stupidity at Monaco was, requiring the two-stop strategy. Because there has to be some kind of middle ground. Tires shouldn't last forever, but they also shouldn't melt. But the complaints of too high tire deg shouldn't be, oh, we should not stop. That is the dumbest thing. Why does Jacques Villeneuve exist? Yellow flag? That turned out to be nothing. They never explained it. Apparently Leclerc had some pedal issues, but I was mostly noting it in case it happened during the race. It didn't. Everything got fixed. Radio was having a kerfuffle. There was no radio throughout the entire FP1 session. There were onboard issues. We couldn't view onboards. Sky timing was broken with no tire info. It was so much fun to have no stats to go over, no fun radio, and be stuck for the full hour with Jacques Villeneuve. I want to cry. Even just thinking about it. Don't make me relive it. Colapinto having an adventure with track limits, he went way too wide. Then Hadjar goes for a spin. Jacques Villeneuve thinks Palou deserves an F1 seat over Tsunoda and Lindblad. That was the thing, they kept talking to him and goading him. Crofty kept goading him into saying like, oh well then who do you think deserves the extra 4th Red Bull seat? Do you think it should be Tsunoda? Do you think it should be Lindblad? And he goes, no, I think it should be Alex Palou from IndyCar. And with the lawsuit going on, that could not have aged more like milk in the moment. Wait till he finds out that the worst Formula 1 champ was an IndyCar driver himself. Lindblad was faster than Tsunoda with 8 minutes remaining. And we're back to Jacques Villeneuve. There wasn't really much to go over. He did say that AI can't do art, and I like that. AI shouldn't replace content creators. And then Chandok and Crofty decided to roast him for being weird and unreplaceable by AI. Normally I only do the top 5 fastest in an FP1 session and then like the slowest, but I decided to do everybody and then all the separate ones. So the fastest was Leclerc, the slowest was Fuoco, but that really doesn't show. So I did the rookies only. The fastest was Lindblad, who was faster than several of the normal full-time people. He was faster than Ocon, Tsunoda, Colapinto, Albon, Hadjar, and Alonso. So Lindblad might actually have an F1 seat next year. The rookies were Lindblad, Iwasa, Vesti, Aaron, Hirakawa,
Iwasa,
Browning, Crawford, and Fuoco. The full-time The slowest was Alonso. I should have known that this would not be a good year. Not a good year for Aston Martin. Not a good race for Aston Martin. I guess that's just a Freudian slip. For FP2, Antonelli had an issue 20 minutes in. Oh, missed 20 minutes. Stroll hits a plastic bag and slides. That wasn't something I was expecting. Usually they hit like the polystyrene bollards and move. Norris was complaining of power surges. I wrote that down mostly in case he DNF'd in the end due to like his car blowing up again. Red Bull might be the fastest car. You can tell I don't really go over this before I just spout out my opinions from Friday and we see how poorly they age. Russell had a snap of, I believe, oversteer at turn 10 and had to go through the polystyrene bollards. That was interesting. I didn't know you could fit through them quite easily. He did. That was cool. Villeneuve's back. If they wanted a JV who competed in the 90s, they should have gone with the Alls. That would be fun. Norris off at turn 11. Albon mildly bonks the wall at turn 19. Now we're discussing oval racing because apparently nothing's going on. Although I did like that they were quite nice about oval racing. Oval racing is fun. NASCAR is fun. I like NASCAR. I'm really excited for the final round. Somewhat. Antonelli being held up by Lawson. It's always Lawson. Sorry, I was thinking about NASCAR and I thought I said Larson, which it is always Larson, but I feel like every time there's an issue with somebody being held up, they're always being held up by Lawson in the early rounds of like free practice sessions. I don't know if it's intentional, if it's just what Sky News decides to highlight, if it's some larger conspiracy to get him gone, but it's always Lawson. Gasly holds up Stroll, forcing Stroll wide at turn 1. I do note those a bit more because I'm a Stroll fan. I'm sorry for existing. The top 5 fastest were Verstappen, Leclerc, Antonelli, Norris, Hamilton, and the slowest was Pierre Gasly. FP3, Flovis on the Red Bull. Should I be hopeful? Ham locks up on turn 3 in his first flying lap. Norris brake issue. Hamilton has to go wide to avoid. Luke Browning in the commentary booth. That's exciting. McLaren impeding Hadjar. I think it was Norris. Antonelli goes too deep. A couple things. You remember the WAG drama about, they always show the WAGs. No one wants the WAGs. Everyone wants the cars because we watch car racing because we like cars. They showed Alex Albon's girlfriend Lily during FP3, and the only reason I have it noted is when they showed her on cam, she audibly mouthed, "sorry." No one caught that but me. She said sorry. I feel bad because she's probably the most talented of them. She's actually a really good golf player, but she mouthed sorry when she came on screen. And then immediately her boyfriend locks up into turn 13, an even bigger one this time. Norris issues, goes fastest, plus 3/10 after a ride height change. Alonso having issues after doing install of 6 tires. Hadjar got annoyed at Gasly for holding him up. Albon complaining of no power with 4.5 minutes remaining. That's not what you want to hear 4.5 minutes remaining in free practice 3. The top 5 fastest were Norris, Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc, and Piastri, and the slowest were Alonso and Colapinto. For Q1, I noted Colapinto's camera is very tinted orange/yellow. My first reaction was, what is this piss cam? Bortolito with a time deleted, Piastri having slight DRS issues. I know he's been having more and more issues. His car was not sabotaged. A lot of people have been saying that lately for no apparent reason. Hadjar then goes fastest with 3 minutes remaining. I love seeing the rookies do well. Both RBs ahead of the Red Bulls. I know it's Q1, but what? And eliminated were Bortoleto, Albon, Gasly, Stroll, and Colapinto. The top 5 fastest, just because I find it interesting, Hadjar, Hamilton, Russell, Norris, and Ocon. In Q2, Piastri was struggling and consistently a second off Norris in the beginning. Tsunoda is showing a lot better pace. Piastri was also complaining about something weird happening with the PU. I did put, Zach, what did you do? Mostly as a joke. I didn't realize that the internet would actually think that Zach Brown was tampering with the car, but I should have assumed it's the internet. If there's Rule 34, there has to be rule Zach Brown is doing things to the car. Not having sex with the car, but messing with the car. Messing with the power unit. but Norris was looking fast. Eliminated were Tsunoda, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Alonso, and Lawson. The top 5 fastest were Norris, Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen, and Sainz. Leclerc on provisional pole, Russell complaining of rears. Do we think Piastri will punt Norris off the track during the race like Max did last year? There was some punting off track, but it wasn't between those two. Crofty makes a repercussions joke. Proud he waited that long. It did take him a while to make a kind of essentially papaya rules joke. We've been making them all year. It's about time they said it officially. Norris on provisional pole. I said a Ferrari 2-3 just after Pecco's sprint win. That hurts, knowing what happened in the race. And Sinner to the Ursa 500 final, albeit he did win that. It's a great day to be Italian. I'm not Italian, I just have a thing where I cheer for all Italians. Don't ask me my opinions about Sepang 2015, we're not getting into that. Evan proceeds to give her opinion for way too long. Anyway, this is Formula 1. I've managed to bring up MotoGP, NASCAR, and tennis, and we haven't gotten to the race yet. I am the most focused being on this planet. So the top 5 fastest were Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, and Max Verstappen. I don't know why I said his first name. And then Antonelli, Sainz with an asterisk of he had a 5-place grid penalty from the last race, Piastri, Hadjar, and Behrman. I assumed that the race was going to be boring, like I mentioned, based off very little action really happening in FP1, 2, and 3 bar technical issues, which technical issues of timing sheets aren't really the thing that keeps you on the edge of your seat. The mariachi theme, my beloved. During the formation lap, which nothing ever happens on the formation lap till it does, Hülkenberg was complaining of not having the full power on the formation lap, which signals doom. At the beginning, So, Max was forced wide by Charles Leclerc onto the grass. Leclerc also goes wide, gives the place back to Norris. Max is now in P4 somehow. Max and George make contact. Not much contact because there was no real damage between those two. But despite the fact that Max was ahead when he went off and before the contact really, Russell still thinks to this day that Max should have given the place back. In the very back, Colapinto and Stroll have a contact. Stroll spins. Piastri falls places. Russell complaining of Max incident cutting corner. Lawson pits on lap 2 from front wing damage. Yellow flag for him? Maybe? There was just so much damage into turn 1. I feel like I was damaged into turn 1. I was damaged, but no one got a penalty for hurting my heart. And I was surprised at how long Yuki was able to keep Oscar Piastri behind him. Although I didn't say I'm impressed that he managed to keep Oscar behind him for, I think, a solid 10-11 laps. I just wrote Japanese Minister of Defense. I miss Checo. Replay. He was far ahead of Russell. WTF are you on about? Yeah, he was way ahead of George before he even, had the off. He didn't really maintain an advantage. And then Max lunges try to pass Hamilton, and they're wheel to wheel. What year is this? Max was forced wide at turn 3 on lap 6. Lewis locks up and has to take what I thought was the escape road. He actually goes through the grass instead of the escape road. The grass is a more direct, as opposed to the escape road's a little bit further out, and he would lose a bit more time. He doesn't lose a place. I was confused about that, because if you go on the escape road, you kind of have to follow this really narrow, only built for a singular F1 car in a very, very straight line. How did he not lose a place? Because he went through the grass. Behrman gets past Verstappen. Sainz and Alonso were noted for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, but nothing was ever done about that. Hamilton under investigation for failing to take the proper escape road. That was no further investigation, even though he didn't. But he was under investigation for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, and was given a 10-second time penalty, which I know they give 10-second time penalties out now for that, but that felt very harsh. Lawson confirmed DNF into the pits. Most of the DNFs happened in the pits, bar the last one. Max and Lewis were under investigation for the turn 1 incident, because the Ferraris were both involved in sort of pushing Max wide, but no further investigation. Although if there was a penalty, it would have been given to Lewis. Charles was never really under investigation, which kind of confused me, because he did bear some of the brunt of the turn 1 calamity, in my opinion. I'm not a steward. I don't want to be a steward. Ocon was complaining of dangerous driving and defense from Tsunoda, but nothing really ever came of that. Norris has a comfy and growing lead. That surprised me. I thought that at least somebody would be challenging him, but I'm not too surprised. He pretty much blared off into the distance. One of the funniest moments to me, I'm glad this one got picked up, Sainz had a 5.1 second stop, but the Williams mechanics were like fist bumping each other as if it was a really good stop. They cut to it once it was mostly like they'd already like started putting the wheels on the car, so I didn't get to see the full stop. I just saw like the last second of it, and the Williams driver or mechanics were like fist bumping each other and doing thumbs up. And I was like, oh wow, is it like a 2-second stop for Williams? And then I see the 5.1 seconds pop up and I'm like, really? You're applauding over that? What's next? You're gonna pop the champagne bottles for P19? Ooh, we weren't last! Sainz goes onto the grass on new tires, obviously gets track limits. There isn't grass on the racing line yet. Russell goes deep but stays in 7th. Max was noted for T3 leaving the track and gaining an advantage, but no further investigation. When he was talking with GP at one point, GP didn't unclick him and started talking to the strategist if it's a 1-stop or a 2-stop. That was truly one of those moments you kind of have to put your head in your hands and just go, oh, imagine making that mistake on public TV. I don't think I could come back from that. I'm already pretty embarrassing, but doing that on public TV would absolutely do me in for life. And when the bad but thumbs up and fist bumpy stop happened, Sainz was having a problem with his pit limiter, so he was under investigation for speeding in the pit lane and was given a 5-second penalty. He says it was an electronic issue, even though he could have lowered his speed down, because lowering your speed and driving slightly under the speed limit is a lot faster than being given a 5-second penalty. Hülkenberg had a DNF from power unit issues. I had a feeling he came into the pits and DNF'd in the pits. Ferrari has to cover Haas. What a statement. I can't believe that we were actually actively discussing Ferrari having to pit to cover off a Haas. Ollie Behrman was having an absolutely beautiful weekend. Lap 36, Alonso DNF into the pits. I'm still hurt over that. Russell was asking to swap with Antonelli, and if Merck want to let Piastri through because they're just refusing. They keep saying he needs to cool his brakes and kind of like build the gap, but he can't because like Piastri's right there. Eventually, 5 laps too late, they let him swap, as well as the most iconic radio happened, in which he's absolutely screaming in a way that you know Toto's not there. He wasn't. Otherwise, he would not be talking like this. He's angrily yelling that he has a car up his ass, and he needs to be let through. I like seeing him angry and petty. It's fun. I might be a Max fan, but every time he gets on the radio and complains, I'm like, man, I kind of like that guy. He's fun. They finally allow Merck swap, but Piastri stays behind them both. That's the one thing that gets me. He had the perfect opportunity to dive bomb at least Antonelli, if not both Mercs. I know that obviously the statement from Senna was a lie. The whole, if you don't go for a gap, you're no longer a racing driver. He rescinded that. He was lying to get away with his own shady maneuver, albeit it was a cool shady maneuver. But if you no longer go for a giant gaping hole that is shaped like a McLaren, what are you doing? Like, seriously, what are you doing, Piastri? You were the championship leader. Were at the time. Crofty and a few other people fell for the box to overtake radio from Piastri, even though that is literally the McLaren bluff code. Every time they've said box to overtake name, it has been a bluff. Box to overtake means we want to pretend like we're going to pit you, but we're not real. On lap 47. Hamilton had potential floor damage from lap 1 and comes in for a stop, but doesn't DNF in the pits. I kind of thought he might. They also can't fix the floor damage if there was a lot of floor damage. Antonelli and Piastri both come in on lap 48, so it wasn't, you could say it wasn't a bluff. It was a bluff. and then they eventually did. Piastri was noted for a collision, causing a slight collision with Ocon. It was mostly just like slight wheel banging. It wasn't really anything dramatic or any damage or carbon fiber flying in different spots. Although Leclerc was complaining of debris on the track, I didn't see the debris. I don't know what car it came from. Could have come from anything. Sainz drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit during his penalty. Again, it feels really heartbreaking. He has a problem with slowing down in the pits. His pit limiter's not working, so when he violates the speed limit, serving his penalty for violating the speed limit, it just feels a little bit cruel. But he did serve the drive-through penalty, and he served it without getting another penalty. So that is good, somewhat. Antonelli asking for swap positions after Russell gets overtaken by Piastri, and they swap. That one just felt like the nail in the coffin. If he'd been let through, he probably wouldn't have been overtaken by Piastri at that point. But to be overtaken by Piastri after you've been begging for 5 laps that you want to be let through on your teammate, after Piastri overtakes you, your teammate immediately calls for you to be swapped back, and you are immediately swapped back. They acted instantly on Antonelli and waited for an eternity on Russell. And they say McLaren's a juicy one. It's McLaren Mercedes. The drama comes from the Mercedes engine. We all know this. Norris was 28 seconds in the lead at that point. And then the biggest drama. Sainz stopped at the stadium at turn 16. Now, where he stopped, he was very out of the way. He was pretty much already past the barrier where like the marshals will pull you so you're not on the side of the road about to get hit. But despite the fact that his car was in a completely safe spot, on one of the slowest turns in the entire circuit, on lap 70 of 71, they call for a virtual safety car. There's no need. There's no need. The last lap was robbed. Now, why do I say it was robbed? Because there were 2 fascinating fights. Verstappen had finally gotten into the DRS of Leclerc and was already about, getting close. It was getting antsy. It was like a lap and a half to go. And this was big. Championship points. It's like 3 points between 2 and 3. It was a big deal. And then they just have to parade around at reduced speed for the last lap and a half for no reason. No reason whatsoever. As well as in P4 and 5, Piastri had finally caught up to Oliver Behrman in P4. Obviously, no matter where Behrman finished 4th or 5th, that would have been phenomenal. He's in a Haas, and he is a rookie. Utterly beautiful driving out of him. I'm honestly floored by it. But it means a lot to Piastri to be that one small position higher, even if it's not a podium. Because after Norris won, with Piastri in 5th, that means that Norris leads the championship with 1 point. Now, if he got into 4th, that'd be an extra 2 points, meaning he'd be 1 point ahead of Norris. This was literally deciding who would be in the current lead of the championship, which 1 point could be the final deciding factor. Do you remember in 2008 when Felipe Massa lost the championship by 1 point? So obviously, when you're scrapping for points, points matter in a championship, but they call the virtual safety car for a non-issue for a car that's basically safe with only 1.5 laps to go at the slowest corner of the entire track, and they ruin the race. Why would you do that? Anyway, it was Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen, Behrman, Piastri, then Antonelli, Russell, Hamilton, Ocon, Bortoleto, Tsunoda, Albon, Hadjar, Stroll, Gasly, Colapinto, Sainz, Alonso, Hülkenberg, and Lawson. The fastest lap was set by George Russell, and the driver of the day, by over, I think, 30%, by no one's surprise, was Oliver Behrman. I proudly voted for him. He did phenomenal. But seriously, what was with the VSC? Can you explain that one to me? I've seen footage of where Sainz's car is. There's no way I would call a virtual safety car for that in any context, in any situation. It makes no sense. I am incensed, honestly, probably more incensed than I am at the mere existence of Villeneuve, and that says a lot about that incident. Also, I'm gonna need to rewatch it. I can picture all of the turn 1 incidents and obviously the lap 6 incidences, but that was just so utterly chaotic. I feel like a part of my brain just kind of melted and I need to get it back. I'm excited for Sao Paulo. That ought to be even more chaotic. Hopefully it rains. But I'll be earlier next time. Maybe I won't be in my pajamas next time because it won't be like 9 p.m. my time.